John Constantine is a character from DC Comics, more specifically from the Vertigo imprint, which was aimed at a more adult and mature audience. Curiously, his movie is not exactly an example of a good adaptation, or rather, not a faithful adaptation of what the character was in the comics. On the other hand, I'd say it's an adaptation that deviates quite a lot in certain aspects, especially in investment, and even in the characterization of some characters. But the most important thing, the one I believe is fundamental in an adaptation, is preserved in this case. The essence, the aura, the atmosphere of the original. The movie conveys that, though not in an extremely precise way, since Constantine's stories were full of sarcasm, irony, cynicism, and a dose of skepticism. They also had plenty of horror and despair. Constantine, no matter how arrogant and superior he seemed, carried many demons inside him, literal and figurative. He had unresolved conflicts, issues that tormented him and kept him awake at night. And not only that, the adventures he got into were terrifying, sometimes even for himself. Coming back to the film, even though it's not a faithful adaptation, there is a large fan base for it. Many people love it just the way it is. Some don't even know the character from the comics. They only know the film. In a way, that's positive, because it allows them to enjoy the work for what it is, without comparisons that might distort their opinion. When you already know the source material, it's difficult to analyze a film neutrally. Still, the film is good on its own, even though many fans consider it an unfaithful adaptation. It really isn't faithful in terms of characterization and certain aspects that define the protagonist, details that help build the universe. That's why some people dislike the movie. It strays from the essence of Hellblazer, the comic where Constantine appeared. On the other hand, many fans wanted sequels because the movie fulfills what it proposes. It delivers an adventure about an exorcist, a trickster trying not only to help a woman, but also to escape his own curse. Not only seeing demons, but also facing lung cancer. Speaking specifically about the film, what makes it so interesting is the charisma of its protagonist. Much of that comes from the actor Keanu Reeves, who is excellent in this role. But the character himself is charismatic and captivating. Even though much of his past isn't explained, we still want to know more about him. He stands in the middle of the direct battle between God and Lucifer, angels and demons, yet he shows no fear. In fact, he mocks these beings because he's been fighting them for a long time. That's one of the coolest aspects. We meet Constantine as someone already experienced and hardened. Of course, what he faces in this story is unprecedented, perhaps even for humanity itself. The threat at hand is serious, yet he remains composed, though haunted by his personal demons. Like his comic counterpart, the movie version is constantly troubled by the knowledge that he is destined for hell. Despite all his work exorcising demons, he believes his fate is sealed. This inner torment defines him, but at the same time, he projects indifference. Even when friends or allies die, he seems used to it, as though he's lost many before. That's the life of an exorcist and occultist constantly facing monsters, demons, and angels. That, for me, is the most interesting part of the movie, Constantine's personality. It isn't something built during the film. It's there from the very first scene. From the moment we meet him, we notice his eccentricity and want to see more. His introduction is spectacular, an exorcism of the mirror demon. The special effects may be outdated, but the scene is still impactful. One striking trait carried from the comics is his smoking habit. Even after being diagnosed with lung cancer, he keeps smoking. That says a lot about who Constantine is. Another noteworthy element is the debate within the movie about human nature. Since heaven, hell, demons, and God exist in this universe, the film raises a question: how much of human behavior is natural, and how much is influenced by these forces? Some dialogue suggests humans are inherently capable of cruelty, while heaven and hell merely push lightly from opposite sides, trying to win influence. A few specific scenes stand out, like when Constantine uses a cat to cross into hell. The representation of hell here is one of the best in cinema: a desert, stormy wasteland in fiery tones, filled with anguish and despair. The demon's design is terrifying. Another iconic moment is near the climax, when Constantine implements his desperate plan, risking everything. At one point, He even flips the middle finger at his enemy, which perfectly captures his irreverent personality. The way he resolves the conflict is also fascinating. At first, it looks like sheer desperation, but knowing Constantine's comic book history, we realize it may have been part of a clever plan all along. After all, this is the man who once tricked the devil himself. That's why the ending feels less like coincidence and more like a masterstroke by Constantine, the great trickster magician.